King versus MyuNgSiK.
Daedalus Point is map number 2. It's Keen's map. The Terran player for Team MVP. He lost the first map against his opponent. He's down 0-1 in the best of 3 series and needs to win 2 back-to-back now if he wants to go to that winners match. Starting to the bottom right in red, we have the Protoss player. KT Rolster. It is MyuNgSiK with a victory on Altazim Stronghold.
Yep. He looks very calm. Keen looks calm too, though, and this is just the first match, so like you said, you can lose 1 best of 3 in this group stage, so you don't have to panic, you know, if you're down a game like this.
It's the commander. If you're the commander, you can't show weakness.
No, never. And look at this, again, Color, just as you predicted, a fast refinery. I think we may see the same Hellion build. It's a little bit far by ground to get to your opponent's base, but that wide open natural gives you so much opportunity. We could also see Marine Widow Mine drop with, you know, the first 2 Hellions trying to distract, and then 2 Hellions and 4 Marines coming in. That's something we've seen in the past too.
You know, the thing is, I could see both from him. I think that at some point we're going to definitely see a commitment to Hellions and an attempt at run-by, because there is not going to be a wall on Daedalus that can really stop those Hellions. But I would not be surprised if he just starts the game off with a Widow Mine drop. He could do both, though. He decided to go into Hellions in game number 1 right away, and I think he has both options here. But for me, one of the reasons why someone like Keen would pick Daedalus is just that lack of wall at that natural, that leaves it wide open for the Hellion harass. And he is just one of those players that loves his Hellions, not only against Zerg, but also against Protoss. He has really good Hellion control, so I would be very surprised for him not to utilize this on the map of his choice.
Right. Another possibility, although I don't think it's going to happen, is Banshees. Just because we saw MyuNgSiK with a really late robotics, and a lot of Protoss players are skipping the robo. And if you have an Oracle that can help you defend with detection, or if you have a Forge and get cannons up, that can be useful as well. Or even Phoenixes, if they can spot the Banshee early on, can help. But obviously we're not going to see that, because we see again the reactor going down just for Hellions, as you predicted.
Cloak Banshees in general is something that we do not see that often anymore in Terran versus Protoss.
Yeah.
It's much more common in Terran versus Terran. You see the occasional Banshee also against Zerg, but it's kind of the go-to build in a lot of TVTs when one of the Terran players wants to be really aggressive. It always seems like you have those 2 choices in the mirror match if you go either for a Widow Mine drop or you go for a Banshee play. And Banshee play is just really effective if you have good control here. We had, like, especially in Wings of Liberty, a time where Cloak Banshees were so effective against Protoss, and you still see them sometimes, but it's not as common as it was in the past.
He actually goes for Reactor Marines and Hellion, so we're going to see Hellion Marine drop, which is not what I expected. He's got a bunker going up right now as well to deny scouting and also to push off this Mothership core pressure that's coming across the map. And this scout will be denied. He does not know that there's a Nexus or not.
We could also go old school here, just try to... Okay, he's already switching the barracks over, but we could have seen like some kind of old school drop with Marines in the main base and suddenly Hellions going in at the natural while the Marines distracted the Protoss player. When was that? It was like 2000. That was beginning of 2000.
That was Wings of Liberty, like TL YOLO. Like I remember when TL was playing random, he would like sometimes drop. Kind of like that.
TLO kind of started that thing when he was like having his Terran phase, and suddenly everyone was doing it. It was, I think, end 2011, beginning of 2012.
Something like that. I mean,
I don't even remember.
He played like in 2010 in GSLs like that. Yeah. People forget, but TLO was actually in the GSL. Don't forget Hyperdub either, but that's another story for another day. But he gets those 2 extra Marines, I guess, just to put them in the bunker, because 1 Marine alone is kind of scary about that. This is obviously already spotted a long away, a mile away, and what MyuNgSiK wants to do is get his Stalker in position to stop it, and there he goes. There's the whole position. The Hellions are not getting in the main.
Yeah, and they can't do anything at the natural just yet. That Nexus is not completed, so there's just no option for them. But we have now the Medivac coming into play, not scouted so far. The Mothership Core, I don't think did get a glimpse of that, so he could get in the main base, but
Phoenix is going to help shut it. Yeah, I mean, he's going to be able to use the overcharge, and the Phoenix is actually going to be able to chase down and kill that Medivac yet again. This is becoming more popular with these Kesta Protoss players to just get a Phoenix bout for drop defense. And now the dropship is dead. He doesn't even have to use the overcharge with this many Stalkers. With a good pro pull. Ooh, that was scary.
He gets a few kills off, but it's kind of worth it as long as you don't lose the Medivac, but I do not think that the Medivac will be able to survive against the Phoenix.
He's trying for it, and the Viking is out, but I mean, it's not going to matter.
Yeah, that Phoenix is just way too fast. That doesn't work. Even with the Afterburners, he doesn't get away here.
Now we can actually kill the Viking if there's no Marine to come help.
Coward.
Coward indeed.
What kind of a battle is that? I mean, this was kind of a duel situation, and suddenly he just chickens out.
Yeah. Well, that's why Phoenixes beat Vikings. Well, I mean, that's why we just watched the Viking 1v1 of Phoenix, and that's why in the previous game, you see Vikings like lose to Phoenixes like crazy. They just can't compete. They don't fire quickly. And
No,
you can't kite with them.
don't.
You just can't. I mean, against Phoenixes, they're too fast.
Yeah, I can attest to that. Phoenixes, like, let's just say I don't like them.
I like them.
Of course you do. I wouldn't be surprised if you would have said anything else.
I like Void Rays more, though.
Yeah, I know that. Void Ray all in since 2010.
Yeah. And he actually will catch this Viking again here. Well, decides to get the Hellion instead. Interesting choice.
The one thing that you can always do with Vikings, doesn't matter if you're up against Phoenixes or against Mutalisks, you can zone them out. You have a really good range and you can just make that work in your advantage. It usually works best if you have either a Thor or a couple of missile turrets somewhere that you can retreat to so that your opponent is never able to really engage into the battle against the Vikings.
Yeah.
It's just one of those things where range comes into play.
Exactly.
And that's where Vikings are great to just defend the base by zoning out units.
Yeah, you see them zone against Corruptors. Actually, most commonly against other Vikings. But yeah, the Marine support there and the turrets in the mineral line, he was definitely going to be totally fine against that with the Viking go. The Viking really helping out zoning-wise. I'm glad you mentioned that. 44 to 33 Harvester count right now. Still very healthy from MyuNgSiK, who got his base up much earlier than Keen. We have a very similar game to what we saw last game. The Colossi tech coming out now as well. Going to lose that very same one mule. Actually loses 2 mules this game. Ouch. And now maybe his Marines are too well protected. He gets there getting one of them.
You know, we talk a lot about Vikings being a great unit when you are playing Protoss versus Zerg, because they can get you scouting information and can also harass the opponent. But the same is also true as we can just see against Terran. You have just so many options of what you can do. Shut down drop play, get into those mineral lines, take down a couple of SCVs. If you're lucky, you will find a structure that is currently being built, maybe a third command center. You can kill the SCV, delay that even further then. And he gets another Marauder, for example. He's just everywhere with those Phoenixes, and that is super annoying, especially when you are the Terran or the Zerg player, depending on the matchup. Just 1 point of inattention can lose you units, and you always have to keep one eye on your bases, even if you try to move out, because you never know where those Phoenixes will appear next.
Phoenix is like an even scarier version of a Corsair that works against Terran, not only against Zerg. Like, it's really, really terrifying. You have to be, like you said, on top of everything. He didn't forget Warp Gate research this time, but he's going to need an overcharge here to hold this push off. This is a very strong push coming out here from Keen, and he's actually going to commit to trying to get this Nexus down. The Colossus is here. This is going to be close. Needs a time warp.
It's going to be really close. He's going to commit to that Nexus. Here come those Phoenixes going for the lift immediately. They're taking the Marauders, but at the same time, more and more damage on the Nexus. It's going to be so close, but with 168 points, thanks to the Phoenixes, he is able to save the Nexus. If those weren't able to lift the Marauders, they would have done all the rest of the damage.
Yep. Now he's going to lose the medevac, possibly some of these Marines,
and
maybe even both, and that's basically game.
That is basically game. You are so right. I mean, if you throw away your entire army and you commit to an attack and you do not do the damage that you wanted to deal, it's kind of game over already. Keen is not going to leave this game, and he is, of course, trying to maybe find a chance to come back into this match, but it looks really bad for him. He wanted to snipe the Nexus, and if he kills the Nexus and loses the army, it's still not the best trade, but you can argue that it's kind of worth it. And
he can recover
follow
from it,
that
maybe.
up. Exactly. Yeah. But if you don't even kill the Nexus, what basically just happened is he lost everything he had and
gained nothing.
Didn't kill a single unit.
Exactly. And so, as a result, look at the army split, 55 to 33, and it's still 2 base against 2 base. The Phoenixes are going to make it so that no, one medevac full of 4 Marauders is going to go over there and snipe it. That's never going to happen. It's too much of a risk for Keen to take that. And now he's actually, with this many Phoenixes on the map, he's really, really terrified to even move out with a ground force that's Marauder heavy, because the Marines aren't going to be enough to save his medevacs.
Absolutely true. And MyuNgSiK, he can do whatever he wants now. He can take a third base, he can move out and attack. He has all of the options, he has all the cards in his hand. There's just no map presence for Keen that is strong enough to really contest the Protoss player now. He cannot engage into any battles there. We have already 2 Colossi, and there's not a whole lot of anti-air. We have a few Vikings in the game, but it's actually only one. One Viking against 8 Phoenixes. That's not going to work. We
Plus
saw in the
3
last
Colossi.
Exactly. We saw it. I mean, that has to be a hero Viking. If Chuck Norris is going to drive that Viking, then maybe, but I do not think that's the case.
It has to be like a really stacked Viking floor. It's actually 10 Vikings that looks like one. That's the only way.
Well, here we go. He can lift the Marauders if he wants to. The bunker goes down at the front, and things are gonna go from bad to worse for Keen.
This is a disaster. This is actually terrible to watch if you're a Terran player, but
Yeah.
he committed to that Nexus. He did not get it.
He wants to get it now.
He's
It's
gonna
like,
get it,
I'm
but-
gonna lose the game, but I'm gonna get that Nexus.
Does get the Nexus, and actually this is going to force maybe a recall.
I think it will, yeah. I think he should recall here. He already did the damage at the top. He could snipe maybe the command center, but he has sends the Phoenixes back. Very appropriate. Just taking the Phoenixes, lifting everything, especially the Marauders, and he takes the game.
GG. MyuNgSiK takes a pretty solid 2-0. I think the word of the day for that series is Phoenix.
MyuNgSiK probably thinking, like, why is everybody talking about Void Rays? Phoenix so much better.
I think that we're seeing this trend of more and more Phoenix play in Korea against Terran, and I think that's going to continue because if you have the Mothership Core, you eliminate ground-based attacks, and it makes it a little bit easier to defend drops. So if you have Phoenixes, like, there are no more drops, so you can just take that out of the playbook. Because are you really going to commit to a drop with Phoenixes on the map? As Gumiho, he did. How well did that go for him yesterday?
Yeah, well, they were all trying. Gumiho did not save one of his Vikings, and the only thing where you really saw it work was on Altazim, where Keen got one of the double drops into the base and killed at least one of them. But that was so late that it was already not worth it anymore.
Yeah.
So especially game number 2 was a bit of a beatdown. Keen really committing to take down the natural of his opponent, and it just didn't work. I mean, those Phoenixes saved the Nexus. If
Yeah,
you
he
don't
picked up the Marauders.
Exactly. If you don't lift those Marauders, that Nexus is just dead. It's gone.
He just eliminated the DPS. He didn't even kill the Marauders. He just like lifted them up until the Stalkers killed everything else and then killed the Marauders. The Phoenixes just eliminate the DPS literally, just pull them up into the air, and they can't fight anymore. It's like they're stunned.
Yeah, Colossi taking down the rest of the army, and then we have the Stalkers killing the Marauders that were still hanging in the air. And once they were back with their feet on the ground, it was already too late. Guys, this was game number 1, our first best of 3. We're of course going to jump into the match between Trust and Symbol in just a few minutes. Before that, we have a short commercial break, so see you guys in a few.